Louis Vuitton travel trunk sold for €189,000. Think about that for a moment. That is roughly the price of a Hermes Birkin bag on the pre-owned market. It is in the same price range as a solid gold Rolex Daytona. It is even more expensive than what some collectors pay for a Basquiat sketch or a Picasso painting at auction. And that is the strange thing. This is not a handbag, it is not jewelry, and it is not a watch. It is just a trunk, a large, heavy, and old travel trunk. Absolutely no catwalk moments, no red carpet appearances, no pictures of famous paparazzi. Yet collectors vied for this Louis Vuitton trunk, and it appeared at a Christie's auction in 2024. Instead of selling quietly within its estimated price range, it far exceeded expectations and became the most talked about item of the entire auction. That raises some unsettling questions. Why would someone choose this trunk over a rare Patek Philippe? Why choose an old travel trunk over another iconic Louis Vuitton bag? And why, with all the technology and craftsmanship available today, could not this trunk simply be replicated? After all, brands frequently re-release Classic sneakers return every year, iconic watches are given modern upgrades, historical handbags return with new materials and higher prices. But this trunk was different. No matter how much money you spend, you cannot recreate the world it was created in. And that is where the story gets interesting. Because the issue is not simply about luggage anymore. It is about why some items are completely outside the logic of conventional pricing. So what exactly is the Copper Explorer trunk, and why is it different from any luggage we typically think of today? Essentially, it is not a suitcase. It is a mobile wardrobe, a complete wardrobe designed to accompany you on every trip. Inside, it has drawers, compartments, and hanging space so your clothes stay neatly organized, clean, and wrinkle-free for weeks or even months on the road. The exterior is where the real difference lies. Instead of canvas or leather, this trunk is clad in solid copper. That is not just for aesthetics. Copper was chosen because it is sturdy, moisture-resistant, and can withstand harsh conditions that ordinary luggage cannot handle. This trunk was created in 1925, a time when travel was not fast or comfortable. There were no night flights, no carry-on suitcases. These journeys meant long sea voyages, transcontinental voyages, and expeditions to unpredictable climates. And that is the crucial point. This trunk was not made for tourists. It was not made for weekend trips. It was made for those who disappear for months at a time, adventurers, aristocrats, people whose entire lifestyles depended on travel without sacrificing order, comfort, or dignity. That is why Louis Vuitton did not treat it as a fashion item. They treated it as a tool. This brings us back to the real question. If it was merely a tool for travel, why is it now priced as high as the world's most famous luxury goods? And more importantly, what happened between 1925 and today that transformed a practical travel solution into a collector's item worth hundreds of thousands of dollars? That is where the real story begins. And when you put all the factors I will analyze below together, the price of the Copper Explorer wardrobe trunk no longer looks like a random number. It becomes an almost inevitable outcome. First, there is the scarcity. From the beginning, metal Explorer trunks were never mass-produced. They were not mass-produced, but special orders for a very small group of explorers, aristocrats, and those whose lifestyles were tied to journeys lasting months. Over nearly a century, most of these trunks have disappeared or been damaged, dismantled in war, or simply forgotten as travel habits changed. Those that survive today can be counted on the fingers of one hand. But scarcity is only the beginning. The initial production cost is what sets this trunk apart. This is not a mass-produced product. It is crafted in artisanal ateliers, where each stage is handled by a specialized team of craftsmen. The most difficult part is the work of the copper shell. Copper is a heavy, difficult-to-handle material that is highly susceptible to deformation. Metalworkers must cut each sheet of copper, bend it manually, join corners with absolute precision, and hand-attach each rivet. Even a slight misalignment will compromise the chest's airtightness, rendering it a failure. Beneath the copper lies a structural wooden frame, crafted by skilled carpenters. This part is almost invisible to the user, yet it determines the overall durability. The carpenters must select stable wood, calculate the expansion and contraction between the wood and metal, and ensure the frame does not warp over time despite bearing significant weight. This is a skill accumulated over many years and cannot be learned quickly. Then comes the interior of the wardrobe, a true miniature closet. Drawers, hanging rails, and dividers are all handcrafted, precisely adjusted down to the millimeter. The goal was not just storage, but keeping clothes wrinkle-free and undisturbed during long journeys. This level of craftsmanship is equivalent to bespoke wardrobes for the elite, not ordinary travel luggage. Finally, there are the finishing touches. They do not create a new structure, but determine if the trunk meets the standards. They polish the brass, check for tightness, adjust the locks and hinges, and test opening and closing it repeatedly. If it is not perfect, the trunk is reworked. The crucial point is all these steps require time and human hands. They cannot be sped up by machines. Quality cannot be compromised. Even in the 1920s, this was an extremely labor-intensive product. Next is originality. Much of today's antiques have been heavily restored, but the most sought-after copper explorers retain their original brass plating and complete wardrobe interiors. Once originality is lost, the value plummets immediately. Here, the strange thing is, it survived. Ultimately, there is the historical value. This trunk is tied to a very specific era when luxury travel was not a quick experience, but a long, arduous journey. It is a survival tool of a lifestyle that has vanished, and so, the conclusion becomes clear. You can make an inspired version. You can copy the shape, but you cannot recreate the human system, the craftsmanship, and the historical context that created this trunk. And when an item reaches that point, it no longer follows conventional pricing logic. It is no longer luggage. It becomes evidence of an era, and evidence of history is always more expensive than its appearance. To truly understand why this trunk existed, you have to set aside the modern world for a moment. At the beginning of the 20th century, travel was slow, risky, and physically demanding. There were no commercial airplanes, no air-conditioned hotels, and no quick return home if something went wrong. When European aristocrats and wealthy explorers traveled to Africa or Asia, they did not just go for a week or two. They went for months, even years, and the environment was harsh. High temperatures warped materials, humidity ruined clothing, mold spread rapidly, and insects destroyed everything organic. Traditional canvas trunks, which worked well in Europe, were completely unsuitable for the tropical climate. They absorbed moisture, smelled, and rotted from the inside out. For those traveling in tailored suits, uniforms, and formal attire, this was not only inconvenient but also unacceptable. That is where Louis Vuitton comes in. Instead of viewing luggage as a decorative item, the brand saw it as a technical problem. The result was the Explorer line, a series of trunks specially crafted for the rigors of travel. Instead of fabric, they experimented with metals like copper, zinc, aluminum, and brass. These materials are waterproof, insect repellent, and can withstand long sea voyages without damage. But materials alone were not enough. Louis Vuitton also developed a technology called hermetic technology. Simply put, these trunks are designed to be airtight and watertight. When closed, they create a sealed environment inside. This means clothes stay dry, fabrics stay clean. Mold and insects cannot get in. At the time, this was cutting-edge technology. Now combine that technology with a wardrobe interior featuring drawers, hangers, and compartments, and you have something entirely new. Not just a box for storing things, but a mobile wardrobe. A way to maintain order, dignity, and routine while traveling through unpredictable environments. Seen through that lens, the trunk becomes perfectly logical. It is not a luxury for show, it is a luxury as a form of protection. The copper shell, the airtight structure, the meticulously planned interior, all serve one purpose: survival while maintaining standards. And that is what sets this trunk apart from modern luxury items. It was not designed to be admired. It was designed to function. Only much later, long after its original purpose faded, does it become something entirely different. An artifact from a world where travel required serious preparation, patience, and skill. And once that world is gone, the chest has not lost its value. It has increased in value. What truly gives this trunk its modern significance is its connection to both the past and the present. Historically, the most important name associated with these bronze exploration trunks is Pierre Savergnin de Brazza. He was not only a renowned explorer, but also the reason these trunks came into existence. De Brazza personally commissioned Louis Vuitton to design trunks made of bronze and zinc so they could withstand water, humidity, and the harsh conditions of expeditions along the Congo River in Africa. In Louis Vuitton's archives and museums, images of the bronze exploration trunks are often displayed alongside his name, almost as proof that these voyages actually took place. Returning to the present, the connection continues in a very different way. although no photos have been publicly released of anyone using the exact 1925 trunk that was auctioned. Pharrell Williams, Louis Vuitton's men's fashion creative director, has clearly revived the brand's fascination with vintage items. In recent collections from 2024 and 2025, he has introduced modernized Couvre trunks and bags, clearly inspired by the old Explorer models. When Pharrell appears alongside these modern, sturdy trunks, he is not selling nostalgia. He is reminding people that the spirit of exploration remains part of the brand's DNA. And this idea is not new. The wardrobe trunk itself has long been favored by legendary figures. Ernest Hemingway owned bespoke wardrobe and library trunks. Douglas Fairbanks and Mary Pickford traveled with dozens of Louis Vuitton trunks. Marlene Dietrich is famous for her shoe trunk designed to hold over 30 pairs of shoes. Today, these trunks are found in private collections, museums, and international auctions. At major exhibitions like Legendary Trunks in Paris, they attract A-list celebrities and fashion icons, while the identity of the current owner remains secret. And that secrecy seems fitting, because at this point, the Copper Explorer wardrobe trunk is no longer about ownership, it is about heritage. Yet some people look at this trunk and say, come on, it is just a box, no matter how old it is. It should not cost more than a car. Others argue that the price has less to do with craftsmanship and more to do with the Louis Vuitton name attached to it. And then there are the practical ones, questioning whether it still serves any real purpose, or if it is just an oversized museum exhibit disguised as luggage. The truth is, all these arguments are valid, depending on how you look at it. So, the real question is not whether the trunk is still useful. It is what value you believe truly matters, the material, the history, or the meaning people attribute to it. If it is an antique trunk of such value, would you consider it a quick cash windfall? If so, you have probably chosen the wrong target. Financially, this is not an easy bargain. The market is small, buyers are few, and selling can take time. It is not like a Birkin bag or a highly sought-after watch, where prices fluctuate rapidly and demand remains constant. But in the long run, things will change. Truly rare antiques are not replaced, they quietly disappear into collections, making those that remain even more valuable. So the takeaway is simple. This is not speculation. This is an investment in heritage, something you hold for its meaning first, and its value second. And looking back on the whole story, this is the lesson I learned. I realized that the true value of this chest no longer comes from its function. It comes from the time and the reason it was created. That is why I always ask myself, what am I buying to use, to show off my status, or to preserve history? Luxury items lose their meaning if you judge them by the logic of ordinary shopping. They exist in a different world. Now I want to hear your opinions. Do you see this as art history, or just excessive ostentation? Please like my video and share your thoughts in the comments. Why is it so expensive? If you find this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment on what topic you would like me to cover in the next video. See you next time!